Hello, my name is Daniel Ellsberg. During the Vietnam War, I worked for Robert McNamara in the Pentagon and for the Deputy Ambassador in Vietnam. Although I was a civilian official in Vietnam for 2 years, I'd been a Marine officer, a rifle company commander, and I used that training to walk with troops in combat. I saw the war up close. I revealed the top-secret Pentagon Papers history of our decision-making in Vietnam to the American public because I understood that showed that we were in illegal, wrongful war, and that we'd been lied into that war under false pretenses, and that there was no prospect under current policy of ending it. Indeed, it was escalating. I hoped that the American people would take that information and act to end the war. When I revealed the Pentagon Papers, I was put on trial, and I had many enemies. The President, Nixon, and his Vice President both called me traitors, although under our Constitution, I couldn't be faced with that charge in an American courtroom just for telling the truth to the American people. The President's National Security Assistant, Henry Kissinger, called me the most dangerous man in America. Dangerous to their policies because they depended on secrets and lies. I faced a prospect of life in prison, like Bradley Manning today. However, many Americans saw the significance of those materials that I released, materials that many attribute to helping end the Vietnam War. 25,000 Americans contributed to my defense fund. Ultimately, after 2 years under indictment, almost 5 months in the courtroom, all the charges against me were dismissed because of the exposure of crimes against me by the Nixon administration. Now Bradley Manning is in the same situation I was in 40 years ago. Although all of the crimes committed against me by President Nixon have now been legalized after the Patriot Act and other changes in our law since 9/11, except for the crime of torture, which Bradley Manning was subjected to by 9 months of prolonged isolation in Quantico. Horrific conditions which were finally ended by widespread public protest. I participated at Quantico and was arrested there with others. When I heard about Bradley Manning and read the chat logs attributed to him, I saw a young man who'd been moved by conscience to inform the American people about wrongdoing, about crimes and lies, cover-up, so that they could discuss this, reform, and bring about an end to those policies. Here's a young man who joined the Army from a working-class background, hoping to go to college, but also to spread democracy abroad. He changed his mind on the war, as I did in Vietnam, when he saw it up close. Specifically, when he was asked to help arrest people that he understood had done nothing more than write a scholarly critique of government corruption. He knew they'd be tortured by the military that we turned those people over to in Iraq. He knew that torture and the act actually of turning them over for torture were crimes in themselves. When he informed his commanding officer of his concerns about this, he was told to shut up and do his job, rounding up more suspects. He recognized that he was a participant in that event, in crime and cover-up. As he put it in the chat logs, he was being asked to do things which he knew were totally wrong. He had a crisis of conscience. I can identify with that crisis of conscience. Americans who care about the future of our country need to be concerned about the Bradley Manning case. There are a number of issues that are involved. Transparency in government, President Obama's unprecedented prosecution of whistleblowers, a campaign against whistleblowing. Prior to this administration, There were only 3 prosecutions brought against whistleblowers for leaking classified information in our country's history. Mine was the first. Under Obama's administration, in his first 2 years, he has brought 5 such prosecutions, of which Manning's is one. Accountability is another issue of our officials and our government, our ability to act as a democratic citizenship. Then there's the revelation of many wartime atrocities revealed in the information revealed through WikiLeaks, and of which Bradley Manning is accused of being the source. There's the catalyzing role that these revelations played, a critical role on the movement for democracy in the Middle East. They were critical in inspiring a movement against the dictatorship of Ben Ali in Tunisia and later against Mubarak in Egypt. I believe history is on the side of those who seek to reveal the truth, not on the side of those who seek to conceal it. I believe that if Bradley Manning is the source of these revelations, history will vindicate him. But there are many people in government and outside who want to conceal those truths still, and will act to convict him and prevent others from following that example of truth-telling. The Bradley Manning Support Network has been key in coordinating nationwide and even global efforts in support of Bradley Manning, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars from tens of thousands of people. We need money in the support network for rallies, advertisements, demonstrations, and especially, of course, for the defense, which could go beyond the military court-martial process to appeals to the Supreme Court. As the first person subjected to the same charges that Bradley Manning is facing, I've studied this now for over 40 years. It's my judgment that a very strong argument can and should be made to the Supreme Court that the charges under the Espionage Act for which Manning is accused should be held unconstitutional under the First Amendment. But that process of appeal, if it's necessary, from a military court, will take even further money than is needed for his immediate defense. There's a lot of work still to be done. We can only call Bradley Manning's conditions fair and just when he's on the other side of the bars and we're all celebrating his freedom. If Bradley Manning did what he's accused of doing, he's one of my heroes. He risked everything. He faces a prospect of life in prison for telling us the truth. We won't abandon him. He needs all the support we can give him. I know that many people here have already given to his support, but I'm asking you now to give more, to give whatever you can. We're up against unlimited government money to convict him. Our resources are mainly our commitment, our creativity, our energy, but we need money too. The Bradley Manning Support Group needs money for advertisements, demonstrations, for a public education campaign, above all for his defense. You can actually participate in defending our democracy, the future of truth-telling and whistleblowing, and a man who by a selfless, heroic act